What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer. Today, I am beginning a new series where I take a look at all the big free-to-play MMORPGs, old and new, to figure out which of them is the best for newcomers in 2024. I would know because I am new to MMOs. Other than the subject of today's video, I have never played one. That is not to say I haven't been interested in playing an MMO. I remember seeing advertisements for Wizarding 101, Pirates Online, Toontown, and I really wanted to play them. I just didn't have the computer growing up that was powerful enough to run them. The first wave of home computers back in that time were potatoes. These games did have a small barrier to entry because you needed a fairly beefed up computer to play them. But now I do have a PC, and I figured it was time to finally give these games a chance. As someone with next to no experience in the genre, I'm curious to see if I even like playing these games and how different they feel from each other. The first game I am playing in this series is Star Wars: The Old Republic. This is a game I first checked out during the pandemic. I sunk about 5 hours into it at the time, and I vaguely remember having fun. Despite already having a character, I decided to start over since I will be starting from nothing in all the other games in this video series. The character creator is pretty lackluster. The amount of character types you can choose is great, but actually changing the way your character looks leaves a lot to be desired. You get your choice of hair, facial hair, and color, but that's about it. There's no way to change your clothing or anything like that. Before I jump into the story, it is worth talking about the graphics, and it becomes clear quickly that this game was made in 2011. Character movement is pretty stiff, everyone looks like they're made of Play-Doh, and there is little emotion conveyed in talking sequences. It doesn't ruin the experience in any way, but it is worth mentioning. The first advantage this game has over its competitors is that it's Star Wars. You can make a story about whatever you want. At the end of the day, it's hard to be cooler than Star Wars as the subject of an MMO. Seeing the opening crawl really sets the mood for the type of experience you're going to get. The story of Old Republic is set up to be 25,000 years before the movies take place. If you've ever played Knights of the Old Republic, you'll be very familiar to the layout and general atmosphere that this game has. The plot boils down to the Sith are up to no good, shocker, and you have to join in on the effort to stop them. You play the role of a Padawan, assuming you choose to be a Jedi, looking to get his stardom as a Jedi. The beginning world puts you on a planet called Tython, where the Jedi have found a new home inhabited by castaway Twi'leks and native flesh raiders. As you move along the plot, you get introduced to some of the main story plot lines related to a mysterious dark side virus going around. I don't really want to get too detailed about the plot because I feel like it's something you should experience for yourself, and it's not really the point of this video. As you might expect, you get a lot of exposition dumps through conversations to move the plot along. You're given dialogue options during these sections, which has mixed results. Most conversation options boil down to, do you want to move this conversation along, or do you want to be an absolute menace to society?
I've been evacuated to a med center, but the fighting isn't over.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
At that point, I think I would rather just keep the conversation going and have to make real decisions later down the line. That is not to say there aren't tough decisions to make at certain junctures, and one side quest comes to mind the most. As you explore Tython, there are a lot of Twi'leks around the village who want to get you involved in the random goings-on in the village. Some of these quests are hit and miss, but overall do a good job to add depth to the world you are exploring. One quest in particular highlights where dialogue choices / options come into play. You learn there is some sort of elixir causing the flesh raiders to become super powered. You have to choose whether to destroy the elixir or give it to one of the military commanders to give to their soldiers. It is a gray area decision that made me sit and think for a second. It's nice not to deal with a black and white matter in a video game. I decided to go grab the elixir and give it to the guy with the thought that I could help them better defend themselves when I wasn't around. Obviously, none of these people are real, and I will never see the results of such a decision, but I have to give the game credit for finding a way to make me care about something like that. Let's talk about gameplay. I'm going to start off with one of my biggest gripes, which is the map. In my opinion, it is one of the worst parts of the game. The map is really inexact, and I got lost on countless occasions because you can't tell where you are. Your player icon is massive, and also the environment has a lot of depth, so looking at it on a 2D map gets confusing. Also, the map is way too small in the bottom corner. Pulling up the big map menu makes things only slightly better. It doesn't help that Tython looks the same no matter where you are. The entire planet is a generic forest setting with hills and paths everywhere. Trying to find side quest characters becomes a chore at some point, and it can be frustrating to find quest items. It is to the point where it has to be a specifically defined feature where the devs want there to be a sense of exploration. This concept just does not work on Tython because the environment is so boring and not a single area distinguishes itself from another. I think the first counter argument to this is to wait until you leave Tython and get to explore other environments. That's all fine and dandy, but I'm at the 3 to 5-ish hour mark of playing in. I will not be leaving Tython anytime soon. As someone who plans on exploring a lot of MMOs in this series, I'm not spending 10 plus hours in each one to finally get into the meat and potatoes of the game. My plan is to spend 5 to 7 hours in each of these games to determine which one I feel like I want to sink a legitimate amount of my free time into. Let's talk about the combat. This is one aspect I'm curious to observe in this series. In my mind, all of them are just number mashers. You spam the number keys until the enemy is dead. I never really understood the appeal of this combat system, and it becomes really apparent in this game. In the first few hours, you are untouchable. As long as you press number keys, there is no conceivable scenario where you can die in this beginning part. So this tutorial world is more of an interactive museum rather than a video game. Over time, I become more efficient at killing enemies, but I never knew how much better I was getting because I never faced a challenge. In Knights of the Old Republic, I plan out how I want to tackle each encounter, and most combat scenarios feel tense. There is a sense of strategy, intensity. In the Old Republic, on the other hand, it feels like I just need to tank my way to whatever objective I'm going to. That is not to say the combat is terrible in this game. The animations are fluid and different from one another. It is just a shame that this glorified tutorial section drags on for what seems like forever. I think that really sums up my biggest gripe about this game, and that there is an alternative. No other massive MMO IP has something else you can go play. You either play World of Warcraft or you don't. For the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic is always available. Those games are essentially the same, but better in almost every conceivable way. Better dialogue, better characters, better gameplay, and better environments. This problem is only highlighted because I am playing all of these games solo. So, would I recommend checking this game out if you're new to the MMO genre? Despite all the bad things I've said about Star Wars The Old Republic in this video, I would say the answer to that question is yes. Getting to take part in the expanded Star Wars universe is inherently cool, and there is a lot of fun to be had in this game. Do I think this game will ultimately be the best free-to-play MMO in 2024? No, absolutely not. The game has not aged perfectly. I'm going to go ahead and say there are way more refined experiences out there for me to explore. What do you guys think? Would you recommend Star Wars The Old Republic to a newcomer? What MMO do you want to see me check out next? Right now, I'm leaning towards World of Warcraft, but if people in the comment section feel there's a more appropriate game to try out, I will go there first. Other than that, that is going to do it for today's video, and I will see you guys next time.